On this episode of Wealth Magazine Business Access, we feature Kirk Nugent, CEO of Kirk Nugent Unlimited. He shares his story of overcoming a childhood marred with depression and broken relationships by finding purpose and success in his passion for speaking. Kirk Nugent, an inspirational speaker, turned his life experiences and love for the spoken word into a thriving business by following several key principles, one of which includes having a mentor.
No matter how great you are, if you want to take it to the next level, find yourself a coach, find yourself a mentor, because it will save you so much time, so much aggravation, and so much energy. Hi, I'm Kirk Nugent. I'm the CEO of Kirk Nugent Unlimited. The first major experience in my life at age 4, I was diagnosed with sickle cell anemia. So I would have these terrible sickle cell crises. I would miss sometimes months out of school, but I was always a brilliant child. I passed common entrance by, I think, my second chance. I had 3 chances. So I passed common entrance at age 10 and a half, 11, something around there. My childhood inside the home, it wasn't the best. I think my parents didn't really know how to love, and they had a lot of wounds from their childhood that they didn't heal, and it was projected on us. I had 2 sisters. They were both older. We were all 2 years apart. My oldest sister, or the eldest, she was the favorite. So what that did to my self-esteem and my other sister's self-esteem is, it was one thing if we were aware that our parents weren't capable of loving, but it was obvious they were capable of loving. They could love one. So we kind of grew up feeling unwanted and unnecessary. If we wanted ice cream, but my older sister liked the chocolate flavor, my dad would only buy chocolate. So we saw the differences very quickly, where one sister would go to a private school, we went to public school. My older sister, she took the common entrance, she didn't pass, but my dad paid, she went to Ardennes. When my other sister didn't pass, she went to Marbley, a secondary school. When I passed, I went to Wmba, so it looked bad, we got to take this other one and put it in Ardennes as well. So it was that type of dynamics, but somewhere in the subconscious mind, you start getting this message that you're unworthy. You're not necessary. You're nothing more than a mere expense. So it erodes your self-esteem and robs you of having a feeling of greatness. At the time it was happening, I wasn't aware of it, but I grew up very depressed. I grew up very sickly, and I remember being as old as 9 or 10 years old. For dinner, I could barely eat half a finger of banana and a piece of chicken wing. I was depressed, but I wasn't aware of it. By the time I got to Wmba, I met some really great friends who helped me. I didn't get a lot of money for lunch, so a lot of days I was hungry. Now you had Mark Chisholm, he was the one that would share his lunch with me. You had another person, Omar Trowers, OT, that's on your Love FM. He would share his lunch with me. You have another person who is in prison right now, David Smith, with the Lynn scandal. We were all in the same class together. So these were people that, in my mind, had compassion. They know Lascelles, that's my first name, Lascelles, and I go by Kirk. I didn't like the name Lascelles because the kids would tease me and call me sickle cell Lascelles because I was so sickly. So these young boys had compassion, and so it made me feel like, wow, the world is not such an ugly place. So I think that led me to be drawn to motivation and inspiration. I came to America, I heard a speaker by the name of Les Brown, and he would talk, there's greatness within you. Now I had very low self-esteem. If you looked at me, I would immediately look at my shoe, because being that I had sickle cell, my liver was always toxic and my eyes were bright yellow. And I remember even attending Wmba, the teachers, they had no etiquette. You know, the teacher would say, you with the yellow eyes, come over here. So it just eradicated my self-esteem. I never felt good about myself. So when we migrated to America, I decided that I wasn't going to take the treatment I was getting in Jamaica. I could stand up for myself. So the family had a rough time transitioning. We had a lot of arguments, a lot of fights, and we became very divided, very dysfunctional. But something inside of me always yearned for something more. I wanted something better. I didn't want to be like a lot of Jamaicans who came to America back in the 1980s. I wanted my parents to be proud of me. I wanted to be somebody they could love. So it seems like subconsciously all my life, I've been searching to be this person that my parent will one day be proud of. I am passionate about speaking, but I know nothing about the business. And once my speaking became a business, it stopped being fun, it stopped making money, because I didn't understand it. Les was the one who showed me, Kirk, you have to stay in your lane. You're a speaker. Outsource the business part. When we migrated to the United States, this was 1983. Now, let me paint a picture of what the United States was in 1983. One, crack was just being introduced into the market, and it was a big consumer item. So a lot of Jamaicans came and they got involved in the crack game, the drug game. The other thing is it was not popular to be Jamaican. Black Americans hated Jamaicans. They hated anybody from the islands. So another thing that was introduced to us in America is in Jamaica, if I had a fight in Wilmer's, the guy that I'm fighting will fight one-on-one. It doesn't matter if he had 1,000 of his friends there. If I start beating him up, his friends will break it up, but they would never jump in and fight me. In America, that wasn't the case. You have a fight with one person, all of a sudden you're fighting 8 or 9 people. So Jamaicans very quickly band together. I remember going around and finding every Jamaican in the school and saying, if you get in a fight, come get me. As I evolve, I'm pretty much running with the wrong crowd. We being known as Jamaicans and Jamaicans are not to be messed with, it felt good because this is the first time in my life I'm having good self-esteem. I'm feeling good about myself. I can fight, I'm not afraid to fight, and people are afraid of me. So as you can see, I'm very much on the wrong path. And I never got involved in anything illegal. I always had a job. I was a good salesperson, always had a sales job. So I'm selling, I'm doing my thing, but after work, after school, I was still getting the fights. The turning point in my life that I alluded to earlier was I was dating a girl and she got pregnant. And when she got pregnant, it dawned on me that, Kirk, you cannot bring a child into this world walking down this path. You have to be a better person, not just for your son, but the mother of your child. And once I had my son, I realized that love was something that was just natural. And if you don't give love naturally, chances there's some place in your being that you're wounded and you haven't spent the time to heal. So it put me on a path where I just wanted to spread more love in the world. I didn't want to argue with people, but it didn't happen overnight. It took me a while to discover who I am and to discover that part of me. Like I said, I always read a lot. So I stopped hanging with the people that I hung with. I stopped going to the parties and I started really reading a lot. Sometimes I was reading 2-3 books per week. And as I read, it drove my ambition to be something more. But what is it that I want to do? I couldn't tell. So I kept going from job to job to job because I'm searching for my passion. My parents didn't understand that I'm looking for my passion, so they dismissed, oh, the boy I have no ambition and can't hold no job. But I knew I was searching for something deeper. Once I found that my love was performing and being on stage, I went all in. I quit my job and I started performing. I started doing poetry. As luck would happen, an agent would be in the crowd and saw me, and they took me and put me on the college market, and I started speaking in colleges and universities. And as I did that, I started seeking out other mentors. Les Brown was a mentor of mine. So I saw Les Brown. I drove 22 hours, one from Indiana to Florida to meet Les. And when I met Les put his hand out to shake my hand. I said, Mr. Brown, I drove 22 hours to meet you. I did not come here for a handshake. He said, what's your name, young man? I said, I'm Kirk Nugent. We started talking, and Les encouraged me to move from New Jersey, where I lived, to Florida, where he lived, so we could go on the road and speak, and he could groom me into the speaker that I eventually grew to be today.
This is your life.
Your purpose on this earth is not to please me, nor is it to fulfill your parents' unrealized dreams. You were not placed here to make concessions so that they could be proud, so they could brag about their seed, fulfill some unfulfilled childhood emotional needs. No disrespect, but let everyone be proud of their very own deeds. This is your life. I came to shine light into the dark, and like a dog against a hydrant, I am leaving my mark. We were not sent here to investigate someone else's idea of what we should be. The complacent life does not stimulate me. So forgive me if I feel no compassion for those poor souls who live to follow the fashion. Because if you want to live a life that's neither limited nor ration, then by God you must pursue your passion. They will tell you that it can't be done, as though you were delivered unto this world for your song to go unsung. Let the world scream that unattainable thing, but for you, there is no such thing as impossible dream. Pursue your passion. Of all the jobs that I had, I did a lot in sales. And the reason why I did a lot in sales is because sales is usually commission based. So I didn't believe in the idea of you and I showing up, but I put in more effort and we get the same pay at the end of the week. With sales commission, you get paid based on your effort. So I like commission sales. Once I started following mentors like Oprah Winfrey, and Oprah Winfrey always said, pursue your passion, find what's in your heart. I realized this sales thing is not really what's in my heart. What's in my heart is to speak and transform lives. So I didn't know how to go about doing that. I always wrote poetry, spoken word. So I took my spoken word and I put on t-shirts, and I started a line of clothing called Ironic Revolutionary Wear. As there became more black violence, police brutality, I went and met Reverend Al Sharpton in New York and started building his youth group because he liked the t-shirts I was putting out. But again, the t-shirts, I could only make money selling t-shirts on the streets or have a few in the clothing store. So that wasn't profitable enough. And I didn't enjoy selling t-shirts, I enjoyed speaking. I started going to poetry clubs, and they have a poetry cafe in New York called the Nuyorican Poetry Cafe, and you compete against other poets. If you could win the Nuyorican, you could win anywhere in the world. The average person takes about maybe 4 or 5 years of competing at Nuyorican to become the Nuyorican Grand Slam champion. I went to Nuyorican in November 1998. By June 1999, Kirk Nugent, 1999 Nuyorican Grand Slam champion. I won everything there was to win. So there was a buzz about me in New Jersey, New York, as far as my poetry was concerned. Now I started getting an invitation to speak in California, Oakland, Pennsylvania. I'm traveling all over. Agent saw me and got me on the college market. This guy was booking people for the college market. So back then in sales, I was making about $700, $800 per week. Now I'm on the college market, speaking, doing poetry, making $800 for the hour. So this felt really good. Within a year, the demand became so great for what I was doing that the 800 went to 12, to 14, to 16, to 2,000, to 2,500. 1 year, I'm making $2,500 per hour, just doing what I love. And I would go to these showcases to perform, and the showcases for representatives from various colleges, they would see you perform and say, oh, we would love to have you at our college. But the problem was they would see me perform and say, oh my God, the Negro, he's so talented, let's bring him in February. So I would get 30 dates for February and then no other date for the rest of the year, because they're just bringing you as a black entertainment act. So I had to figure out, how can I get booked in March, April, May, and the other months? So I realized that they're booking speakers in those months, not poets. So I started positioning myself and say, I'm not a poet. I'm a speaker who happens to incorporate poetry. So that's how I went from poetry to speaking. So they asked me, well, what do you speak about? Well, what do you book speakers for? Well, we book speakers for leadership. I speak about leadership. So I would read books on leadership and write poems about leadership, and I'd go and do the speaking engagement. As I did that, I was always listening to Les Brown. Les Brown was always someone who inspired me. So I said, you know what? This is America. Anything is possible. I'm going to go find this Les Brown character. So the first time I sought to find Les Brown, he was in New York. I live in New Jersey. They're neighborhood states. And so I went to New York and couldn't find the place he was speaking. When I finally got there, they said, oh, Les is leaving. You can't speak to him. And I allowed the opportunity to slip through my fingers. I decided if I ever got that opportunity again, it would not slip through my fingers. About 6 years later, someone told me Les is speaking in Florida. The night before, I'm speaking in Indiana. It's about a 22-hour drive from Indiana to Florida. I got in my car and I drove all night. Met Les and I told him I would love to become a speaker. I believe that I'm very inspirational. I said, follow me and I'll show you what I can do, because I was very cocky as far as my speaking ability. So they put me on stage. I did a poem called I'm Here to Claim My Destiny, which was a Les Brown speech and a T.D. Jakes speech that I took, remixed it and made it my own. Les loved it, invited me to move to Florida, and we started touring and speaking together. I am passionate about speaking, but I know nothing about the business. And once my speaking became a business, it stopped being fun, it stopped making money, because I didn't understand it. Les was the one who showed me, Kirk, you have to stay in your lane. You're a speaker. Outsource the business part. Hire somebody to do this. Get an accountant, get an agent, and he showed me how to really make it into a business and make it work. Because again, I would say Les shaved about maybe 10, 15 years off my learning curve. Because if I had to learn all of that stuff that he taught me on my own, I would still be out here trying to fumbling around. So when he encouraged me to stay in my lane, that was great. I needed to learn that, and it helped me to drive my business forward. He also showed me how to put a speech together. Because before, I would just speak from my heart. But it's like, Kirk, there's a way, you could give me any topic and I could speak about it. And he showed me a formula that he used for his speech. And I realized by watching, oh, he has a formula. So I learned, again, body language, how to observe the audience. If I'm on stage and I'm speaking and I realize that my audience is not leading in, they're not nodding when you're speaking, then it's time to change gear, change course. And there was just so much that he taught that you couldn't learn just watching speakers. You have to have that intimate relationship. So when it comes to a mentor, you can't put a price on that, because it can really cut a lot off your learning curve. And really, another thing that a mentor does, it introduces you to all the insiders in the business and opens other doors that normally you could not open on your own. So no matter how great you are, if you want to take it to the next level, find yourself a coach, find yourself a mentor, because it will save you so much time, so much aggravation, and so much energy. So whatever you're doing to get to that next level, find someone who's been there, done that, and learn from them. I believe that a lot of people don't treat the business like a business, and therefore they don't succeed in the business. Even though I'm living my passion and this is what I love to do, we have to understand it's a business. If we don't treat it like a business and don't show up like it's a business, like a lot of reasons a lot of poets in America never transition to become a speaker is because they treat their poetry like it's a hobby. So they'll get an engagement to show up at 9 o'clock. They don't get here till 9:30, 10 o'clock. They're not treated like a business. Me, if you book me to speak and the speaking engagement is 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm flying in the night before because I might not get a flight. The flight could be late. So I'm going to make sure once I fly in, I'm going to call and let you know, listen, it's Kirk Nugent. I'm in town. You don't have to worry. I'm going to be there on time. I'm always professional. I've never been late. I've gotten so much more business just from doing that, being on time, letting the client know I'm here, I'm in town, and I'm always well researched. I'll give you an example. I came here in, I think, 2006, and Les was with me. We were doing something at the National Arena. It was for corporate Jamaica. So I realized Les was on stage and he was speaking, and I'm looking at the audience and I'm not liking the reaction that I'm seeing. They're not seem to be fully engaged. So the first thing I did while Les is on stage, I took my jacket off, took my tie off, and I sat in the audience. And I'll ask the person I'm next to, is this what you came to hear? No? What did you come here to hear? When it was lunchtime, I sat with the audience. They thought I was one of the people from corporate Jamaica. I'm the keynote speaker. I'm going to be closing it. So by the time it was my time to go on stage at 4 o'clock, I knew what everybody wanted to hear. So with my first opening statement, I got a standing ovation because I was very in tune with my audience. And from doing that one thing, Sagicor brought me in, ICWI, Guardian Life. I just kept coming back to Jamaica and speaking because it's so important that you treat this thing like a business. And it's so important that the people who bring you in, they're paying good money to fly you in from wherever you're coming in. So make sure they feel like, oh my God, this was a great investment. So I'm always well researched. If I'm coming in to speak to Sagicor, I'll fly in 2-3 days before and speak to the people who work there, both management and employees, because I want to know what's the issue that management is facing, and I also want to know what are the issues that the employees are facing, and how can we bridge that gap and find a working relationship. So I believe that a lot of people don't treat the business like a business, and therefore they don't succeed in the business. My slogan, or the mantra that I use, is helping ordinary people create extraordinary lives. And the reason why I say this is that I believe that everyone has the ability to be extraordinary. And it's just that Les used to say, what's the difference between the ordinary and the extraordinary? It's that little extra. And it's about going that extra step. But I don't believe you can become extraordinary if you go with the flow. You have to find what makes you tick. You have to find who you are, what's your passion. So the first thing that I try to do when I meet people is to build them up. My policy is if I meet someone, I'm either going to take them higher or leave them where I found them, but I'm never going to take them lower. And I believe that in order to create an extraordinary life, you have to be who God created you to be. The only thing in life that becomes relevant is how you treat people. When you're gone, that's what people remember. They always remember how you make them feel. Not the size of your house, the size of your car, your accomplishment. What they remember is that human heart-to-heart connection. And all of us have the ability to be better human beings if we just make a decision that, today I'm going to cause no harm. I'm not going to do any gossip. I'm not going to make anyone feel less than. I'm just going to uplift people. And it's very simple to do once you start being okay with yourself. Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you'll think it's destiny. And how you make the unconscious conscious is asking yourself, well, why does that bother me? Why did I react like that? Why did I treat her that way? And you always question your motives, and you'll bring the things that are unconscious to the conscious. And that one thing has changed my life, making the unconscious conscious. A quote that I read years ago said, if we avoid the difficult conversation, we trade short-term discomfort for long-term dysfunction. Now, I spoke earlier that my family was very dysfunctional. And in order to heal, we need to have some very difficult conversation. But a lot of people don't want to look at, well, I did this and I'm ashamed of it, because there's no judgment. It's like, look, in order to heal, we got to go back. It's like having a bullet wound and you put a Band-Aid over it. You can't do that. You got to open it and let the pus and all the ugliness come out. So my family is not willing to have the conversation that causes discomfort. So therefore, we've traveled along in dysfunction for 3-4 decades. Now, I can't help that, because it's one thing if I have forgiven you, it's another thing if you haven't forgiven yourself. So what I can do is break the cycle by making sure I'm not like that with my son. So even though I can't go back and have unwilling participants who are not willing to heal, I can make sure my immediate circle heals. Now, I want to make clear before we go that there's no animosity towards either one of my parents or any anger, because I knew they grew up in an environment where they were lacking love and they were treated in the most ungodly manner. So what they're doing is just a natural projection of someone who has not taken the time or does not have the resources to heal. So there's no anger or any animosity. I'm just saying I believe that we could heal by having some uncomfortable conversation that the family is not ready to have. And I find it ironic that I'm a speaker, but certain people I can't speak to. Wealth for me are my relationships. Wealth is not something that you can buy. It's not something you can purchase. It's nice to live a certain lifestyle. I'm not anti-money. I'm not anti-luxury. I'm all for that. But I'm not for that at the cost of the feelings of another human being. No. I believe that human beings come first, and wealth comes from the soul. So the wealth it's based on all your relationships. We've been misguided into believing the things that don't matter are wealth, and they're not.